the Alive with Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Megan, and today I have my sister Margot on the podcast. Margot graduated from Grand Canyon University 3 years ago with a degree in business management. She's working in HR and also ran D1, which we'll talk about later, which is super cool. She also is working in kids ministry at her local church and is just living her best life. You just helped with your friends' bachelorette party and wedding, and yeah, you're in a fun season. So we're excited to have Margot on the podcast. This podcast is for women and girls in high school and college and after college. And so Margot is the perfect person. She's been through high school, college, and now after college, and all the things that entails, like waiting on the Lord with jobs that you are looking for, and like so many directional challenges that you're having to trust God with. And so you're the perfect person for this podcast, and I'd love for you to share seasons that you've had to rest and just trust God in.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on this podcast. I guess I'll share a little bit about kind of how I went from being a D1 athlete and then how I made it to Arizona, things like that. So when I was running D1, it was basically my whole identity. I feel like that was like the goal in high school, like make it D1, be able to run the fastest times, be on the team, kind of like all the achievements I had in mind were running related. So when I started running during COVID, it was a little bit tricky because we weren't able to run as a team consistently. So I had to train on my own. And then finally, when I did make it on the team, I was so excited and immediately got injured. And so that was just heart wrenching, honestly, especially because most of my identity was in running and was in achieving those times and making the team. And so when that happened, I just had no idea what to do. And
making the team at PSU is a big deal. Like
for sure.
Portland State University is an incredible running college,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also D1. And making the team, having those coaches, like there's so much pressure, and especially during COVID, that was probably the hardest time to join the team. And then you got injured, so it was like thing on top of thing. And yeah, so tell us about finding your identity through that.
Yeah, so I feel like at first when I had to quit the team because there was just no way to come back from that injury at that time, I truly didn't know what to do. And I feel like it caused me to be kind of angry at God because it felt like he had given me this big opportunity to actually run and like pursue my dreams. And then all of a sudden it was just taken away and there was nothing I could do. And especially because I love to have control and love to be on top of things, it just felt very disorienting. Like my whole identity is gone. I don't know what to do. I don't have a focus or a vision for the future. And so anyways, I was sitting in church one day and I was kind of stressed going to church and didn't really want to be there. Didn't want to do a whole lot because I just didn't know what to do. And it was after COVID, so everyone was kind of confused. But I was sitting there and I remember he was talking about like Abraham being called to Ur, and I didn't hear anything in the sermon except that, like being called and like God saying go to Abraham. And in that moment, I honestly felt just like a very focused statement from God, just go. And I didn't know what that meant. And I had actually decided to do online school for the remainder of my time in college because I was like, well, if I can't run, then I may as well make money on the side and just focus on that and then just do school online to make it easy. And I had just gotten a promotion at work too. So that was pretty exciting. But again, just no direction. So then when I went home, I was talking to my now sister-in-law about different colleges and opportunities. And I was kind of looking all over the US at different options. But then I had applied to GCU, which that was kind of on a whim because I don't like the heat and I didn't want to be here. But we had done like a family trip to Arizona randomly that summer. I really don't know why, but I think people were interested in moving. But I didn't want to be here. I was like, it's too hot. It was like 115 degrees when we came, and I was like, no. But I had applied there and I'd gotten accepted, and my now sister-in-law was kind of like, you should maybe look into it, just see opportunities there are.
Sister-in-law Katie was actually looking to go to
Mhm.
Grand Canyon University and then stayed and went to Oregon State University instead because of our brother. So
Yeah.
crazy how that worked out, but
Mhm.
that kind of got the name GCU out there for us.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I applied to get a dorm room and just thought I would see, put out feelers, and I immediately got accepted and got put into a specific room. And so doors just were opening. And so I ended up telling my boss, like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to move to Arizona. And it was definitely a step of faith because it didn't make a lot of sense financially either, because I was all set with my job. I was all set with online school. It was just, it seemed like maybe the best option or maybe just the easiest option.
And our whole family was still in Oregon,
Mhm.
most of our whole family, and
Mhm.
nobody was in Arizona, no relatives or anything.
Mhm.
So it was a total like leap of faith.
Yeah, and it really didn't make sense in a lot of ways, but I felt a lot of peace. And so I ended up moving, and this is something I want to share because sometimes it feels like when you make a leap of faith, it needs to feel right in the moment. And when I first came to Arizona, the first day when my mom was dropping me off, it was probably one of the hardest experiences I've ever had. Like, I didn't feel good about it in some ways because it was just so stressful and nerve-wracking to move states, go somewhere you literally don't know anyone, and just start a new life, completely new. And so, yeah, I remember literally just sobbing in the car with my mom. And I was like, I don't want to leave. Like, I don't want to go here. But I knew in my heart that this was the right decision. And so, anyways, that first day, I got placed with a random roommate, which she became my best friend in college. And literally, my mom dropped me off. I'm sobbing. And then that night, I was having the time of my life with new friends, and just enjoying everything. And it was also really cool because my faith was pretty strong. I feel like consistently, I grew up in a Christian household. Like, but it wasn't until I got to college and had to really venture out into that faith on my own that I felt like it really stuck. And it was cool because I would say my faith was kind of like lukewarm before I came to GCU. And then literally like day one, I'm just like full of the Holy Spirit, just so on fire for God. I felt like so pushed in my faith. All my friends were super excited to pursue God. And it was just cool to see, like, it felt like 0 to 60.
So you said you came here and you felt like overwhelmed. You were like crying in the car as like our mom dropped you off and everything. What was the transition like? Because even though you met like your best friend in college and had a great time with, I'm
Yeah.
sure there are those moments where you're like, was this the right decision? Why did I decide to move to a random state away from my family? Was this
Yeah.
God? What comforted you in that? How did you trust God through that decision?
I feel like it was the community that surrounded me that really helped in the church that I was involved in at the time, because I did feel like so much peace the whole, like, I think till the second semester probably, and it felt like the right decision. But then I feel like my faith was really tested the second semester, funny enough, like once everything kind of settled in after coming home for Christmas and being with family. I feel like just the feelings I was feeling before it came back the second semester. So I feel like navigating that was really, really hard. But since I had cultivated good community and had really learned who God was in the first semester, I do feel like that sustained me. But that isn't to say there weren't ups and downs. But just being real and raw with my community was so helpful because I never had a community that really pursued God like the way that the community I cultivated did at GCU.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you and your friends were believers and you leaned on each other for
Hmm.
advice and like everything you were going through. Was that a Bible study? Was that a church? What did that community look like?
Yeah, I feel like most of the community I got was from life group. And that was also really cool because everybody was just so eager to make friends in that life group specifically. And I know not everyone has like that quick connection. So it can be over time that you cultivate that. But for me, it was like life group, just that support system. it grew and was strengthened so much just over the course of like a week. And then we were like best friends and we just did everything together, which was really fun. But I think that community specifically, they were super vulnerable and everyone was willing to share very intimate details of their life and to also share moments where their faith wasn't super strong and they needed help. And everyone was willing to reach out and also support each other, which I never felt that ever in my life. And so I feel like that was why I was able to open up and really be encouraged in that season.
That's amazing. But what did you learn about God? Did you learn to pray? How did you learn to rest in the unknown?
I feel like I learned to just be a little bit more quiet and listen to God's voice because I was so focused again when I was running and everything with showing up to practice, showing up to this extra thing, doing this and that, being involved in every extracurricular I could possibly be in. And then at GCU, there was so much time to just be quiet in between classes or on a Monday morning when you didn't have anything to do. So I feel like I learned to hear his voice through, again, community sharing their experiences and then being encouraged to try myself and to like pray and ask God to move. And I think that was the biggest thing is just asking God to show himself to me. I had never done that before.
That's amazing. I talked to somebody in my life group actually. She wasn't a believer, and I told her to ask God to reveal Himself to her, and He did. And it's like
That's so
such a
cool.
simple prayer, but I think just really asking God to reveal Himself to you, reveal His plan is so important. But also going back to this like season of life for you, like you also gave up running, which is a huge deal. Margot ran like 8th grade through senior year and then in college. This is like her identity and mine as well. So giving up running is huge, and also not being able to eat like balanced meals. Like you're in the dorm, so much unknown, so much of your identity is just like ripped away. I think that also played a role in having to just give all control to God. And I think also as a runner, I would be asking God for help on my goal to maybe make a time, get a PR, and it's like always God is like the helper of my goals, but then reframing your brain to no, I want what God wants. And even though my goal is running, like for you, your goal is running, but then it's COVID, and then you also have an injury, and that's like ripped away from you, and then being able to fully trust in God's plan. God's plan isn't maybe what you had planned at first. So how did you reframe your thinking?
Yeah, I feel like it honestly took all of college. It wasn't like a quick fix. And I feel like that's just something as a Christian you learn over time. Like every dream you have and every goal you have, you ultimately have to go back to why do I want this? Is this pursuing something that God has for me, like the overarching, like loving God, loving other people, or is this more specifically my goal? Which you can have your own goals and you should have your own goals. But I think it can be so easy to get caught up in those goals that you forget.
And
And
forget to align it with God's plan as
mhm,
well. And ask God, is that what He wants as well?
I feel like in a way because college was so new and so exciting and every like the environment was so new, at first it felt easy. Like, oh yeah, I'm not running, but now I have this super cool life that I never thought I would have, all these new experiences, and that in and of itself kind of became a distraction. So for the first like semester, second semester even, I really didn't feel any sense of urgency to find like a purpose again or because it was just easy. But then it really did hit me like the third semester and kind of the second semester as well, where I was like, oh, wait, this is starting to kick in that this is just normal life again. And I don't know why I can't run. And I don't know why I'm here. Like, what am I doing? Like, I got off course. Like, that was fun and all, but like, can I go back to running? And so I did actually try to go back to running, and all the doors shut again. And I still had the injury and I still felt the same. And I think that was super discouraging. But my community again played a really important role because they were like, well, they didn't know me as a runner. So they're like, well, you're really good with people. You're good at this, you're good at that. And so I felt like that was helping kind of direct me back to what the focus is. And I feel like I think at that point it was like I don't know who I am. I don't know what's going on. So it was just again like you were saying before, just a complete dependence on God. Like I don't know what my next step looks like. I don't know like what the next hour looks like. I have no idea what I'm doing.
And even away from running, then you're
Mhm.
going into your career.
Yeah.
And is this because you were going into accounting and then
Mhm.
maybe PT school and then you
Mhm.
settled on business management?
Yeah.
So college is, yeah, totally a ton of unknowns and trusting God. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think it's okay to not have any idea. Like to
100%.
be completely clueless to what specifically your next step looks like. And again, I think it just made me realize like how to live more in the present just day by day cuz I just didn't know. So that looked like okay, this looks like a cool club to join. I joined the project management club. I was like I would never join this, but I don't have any other idea of what I'm doing. So I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to have fun. So I did, and that was really enjoyable. But again, it didn't give me my full purpose because I didn't know what my full purpose was, but it was something in the meantime just to kind of get involved in. And then I started doing like local outreach with the kids, which was really, really fun. But again, that didn't solve all my problems. That was just something like in the moment, like that felt like the right thing to do. So I feel like I was just learning to surrender my goals and my dreams and just kind of be like, here I am. Like, if you want to use me for this, I'll do it for a season. And I think that was fun in a lot of ways because I got to do a lot of different things and a lot of opportunities opened up. But I feel like it's just helpful to know like, you don't have to feel like you have your full purpose figured out when you're in college.
Even after college,
Yeah,
like there
like
is no
ever.
timeline.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that I always thought in high school. Once I get into college, I'll get my degree in whatever I'm interested in, and then immediately know my purpose in life. Immediately get married. Immediately, like just all the things like you just expect them to be planned out for you,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's so much trust in God in that. So then after college, you or during college, Margaret found a internship with Enterprise, and ended up being a part or ended up being a manager.
Yeah, so I started out it was like a management internship. So I worked my way from management trainee and then worked to assistant manager.
And then tell us about that. So Margot gets this incredible role. She's making lots of money and doing super well, but then finds she doesn't feel purpose in this. And she doesn't feel like this is where God has her and or where God has called her. And this was actually when I started going to GCU. And then Margot took a leap of faith again and then got a job as a chiropractic assistant and loved that job. And then actually recently quit that job and has a job as an HR, in an HR role, which is an incredible role. And God has totally provided for you there. But tell us how you went from each of those jobs and how God worked in your life through each of those.
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story because how I got the internship in the first place was I was just in a class and I saw this guy in front of me applying to Enterprise. And it was just crazy because I couldn't find a job. Like, I didn't know what I was doing for the summer, and I was in Arizona, but I was going to be in Oregon for the summer. So I just randomly saw this guy in class applying, started applying myself, and ended up getting the job. I don't care about cars. I don't know about cars, but I just randomly applied and got it. And so, yeah, that was just kind of random, but the internship was amazing. I learned a lot. And then I was done with the internship over the summer, went back to my job at Chick-fil-A on Lopes Way, and definitely did not have any purpose in that. I can tell you that. But no, it was getting me through college. It was,
That was a good job. I'm sure you encouraged lots of people.
yeah, one milkshake at a time. But anyways, then I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll see if I could go part-time at Enterprise. So I called them up and they actually had a position for me. So I continued my internship all the way till I graduated. And then I didn't feel peace about continuing with that. And so I was telling my boss that, and then the regional manager came in and was like, "Hey, you should go to truck rental," which is another side of enterprise. And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I tried that and got the job, and that was like a very good, very different type of job because that was more sales oriented. And I never thought I would see myself in sales or working with 26-foot box trucks.
And
Like,
driving them.
yeah,
Like Margaret's driving around these like 20-foot box trucks,
yeah.
selling them to like truckers. Like it's
For
crazy.
real. But that ended up being a really cool opportunity, and I found a lot of moments where I could share my faith in that work environment and was really encouraged. But that was a really hard season because I didn't feel like it was the most life-giving job ever. It was a very negative work environment, very rough and tough. Like people were just struggling. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think this is another season like going to PSU becoming a D1 athlete because Margot works
Mhm.
super hard to get her business management degree, and then she gets this incredible job. She's giving presentations, she's getting raises, she's moving up,
Mhm.
and then again you don't feel purpose in this. And then it's like, what was that degree for? Why did God allow me to get a degree that I don't feel is aligned with my purpose?
Mhm.
And how did you trust God through that season and then find a way out?
Yeah, I feel like it was genuinely just being on my knees 24/7. Like I can't even explain like the turmoil that I went through during that season cuz I was in that industry for about 2 years before I found my other job, and I wanted out so badly, but all the doors just kept shutting, and I would apply to so many jobs, but I felt God's peace at that job even though it wasn't what I felt like I wanted to do. And like opportunities to share the gospel opened up at every single position at Enterprise.
Every single day. It sounds
Yeah. Like it was completely a ministry opportunity, but not where I felt myself being or felt called to. And so that was tough, just praying and feeling God say, "Yeah, you can stay another day." And me going, "I don't want to stay another day." Like, can I please do something else? But yeah, there were so many opportunities that just kept opening. So I just stayed, and I kept moving up in the company and had a lot of favor with all the people. And so it just worked. But I mean, my roommate could tell everybody like I was unwell, very unwell, just falling apart. Honestly, it was so exhausting. I had to wake up at like 5 a.m. and work all the way till 5 o'clock, sometimes 5:30. I was cleaning trucks in 115 degrees, and my car broke down a couple times during that time. And actually, one of my employees hit my car with one of the trucks at one point. So it just felt like very discouraging, but my faith was actually flourishing during that time. And I think that's because sometimes God has you go through seasons where you have to rely on Him, and He just really nurtures your faith during that time. So I wouldn't have changed anything. But right when I felt like I literally could not continue, that's when the opportunity opened at the chiropractic clinic. And that was a leap of faith because I didn't need my degree to get that job. It wasn't very good pay at all, like barely would make ends meet.
and didn't pay for insurance.
No insurance, hardly any PTO, but I felt completely led to stay there and go there. And so, yeah, once I did that, again, it was a leap, but God provided so well during that time. Literally never had any financial issues, no concerns. Met one of my best friends during that opportunity. So it was just crazy, and I was able to share my faith in that job. It was like a family-owned chiropractic clinic where they loved the Lord, and um, it was just amazing. Like genuinely, so many opportunities.
So cool. How did you see God providing that job? And was it similar to coming to GCU? You found new friends. Like, was it like encouraging at first and then discouraging after? Or like, tell us about that change for you and how you saw God work in that new job.
Yeah, I feel like for a little bit I was unsure if I made the right decision, but I also every time I thought maybe I didn't, I felt that same peace when I decided to accept the position where it was like, yeah, you can trust God, like He's got you covered. And it was just really cool to see because I had saved a lot when I was at Enterprise. I would just put money away because I was making more than I needed. So during that time when I was making less, it was just amazing because I already had my savings. So I really could live basically paycheck to paycheck, which was what I honestly had to do at first. But then after about 6 months, I got a raise where I was making practically the same amount that I was at Enterprise. And it was just really cool to see because every month I would be worried that it wasn't going to work. And it literally always did. I always had extra money. And not that money's the most important thing, but it was just cool to see that taking a pay cut was so worth it, and the opportunities that opened up at that job were amazing, where I literally could talk about God all day every day, encourage these patients, and honestly get to talk with people a lot, which is something I love to do, and hear people's stories and hear how God's blessed them and provided for them. And it was like a season of small things where I wasn't doing amazing things, wasn't accomplishing all these titles or moving up in crazy ways in a company, but it was a very small, quiet season. And it was super restful, which is exactly what I needed after being at Enterprise, where I feel like I was just so tired. It was chaos all the time. But I feel like in this smaller season, I was able to grow more of a community. Because after college, you kind of lose community, it feels like sometimes, because you don't see them every day like you can in college. But then during this time, I was able to kind of grow my church community and start to join the run clubs and things like that and try new things. So it was really fun. I just felt like I had a lot of extra time.
That's amazing. Now, after that experience, give some advice to a listener who's maybe going through the same thing you went through at the truck rental job, where you felt like God had you there for a reason. You had ministry opportunities, but you felt exhausted spiritually, mentally. How did you get through that? How did you trust God through that? And how would you give advice to a listener who is in that situation? Should they stay or should they go? How do they listen to God and trust God through that?
Yeah, I feel like it's hard to speak specifically because everyone hears God very differently. But for me, I feel like there's a time when you feel like God is sustaining me so I can stay, and doors are continuing to open, and opportunities are there, even if it's not incredibly comfortable. And you might even feel fulfillment within that job opportunity or the experiences that God's opening up to you. But I feel like for me, it was just being in constant prayer, specifically like, God, if you want me to change jobs, make it evident, make it clear, make me feel no peace being at this job anymore, help doors to slam shut. And especially because I felt like I had a lot of favor at work. I was like, God, like, if you don't want me to stay, help me not to have favor in moving up or in the workplace, or opportunities start to shut. And genuinely, that's what happened. Like, all of a sudden, my, like, kind of everyone, it felt like turned against me in a way, and moving up felt like it was not an option anymore. And my boss's boss wasn't on my side anymore, wasn't advocating for me like she was the whole entire time. And I felt like my own, like, I was just dying on the inside. I
And
felt
you
like,
felt so much peace with the new
yes,
job. So
the
prayer is
contrast,
the biggest,
for sure.
biggest encouragement.
And however you hear God, whether that's through community, whether that's through prayer, whether that's Him literally speaking audibly or in silence, or whatever it may be, just really take the time to open space for God to speak. I feel like that's the best way. And for me, it's in quiet, like peaceful moments. So I would just try to have time each day where I just listened to God, just sat there. It's like, please speak to me because I need direction. And then just putting out feelers, trying applying for jobs. Because I feel like sometimes it can be like, I'm not going to do anything till God commands me, but we have free will. We have free agency. God wants us to move and to just ask Him and put out little feelers in faith. And He shut the door every time when I would apply before, but this time He opened the door.
In this time, you said you had more time to rest. Me and Margot actually decided to practice Sabbath, where we just rested on Sunday. So instead of doing our grocery shopping, laundry, all of those like things, we tried to just rest one Sunday. Because I think it's so easy to
We need to do it again.
we do. It's so easy to fill every second of every day and just give God a little bit of time. But if we really want direction from God, we need to fully rest so we can hear His voice. Because yeah, God is always there, but we need to slow ourselves down so we can listen to Him. But also during this time, you said you went to the run club and you're just building community. Tell a listener who is maybe just graduated college and needs to find friends and community in a new church. Tell that listener how you got through that. How did you find your church? How did you build your community after your friends went back to their hometowns and everything like that?
Yeah, I feel like it's honestly being okay with letting go of the past almost, like what you saw yourself doing or how things were, just letting go to a new season. Yeah, just being open. Like, I don't know what this new season looks like, and being okay with different changes and getting comfortable being uncomfortable is what everyone loves to say, but it's true.
And you're in different seasons from other friends. It's like this in high school too, but especially in college. If you're single and you're still looking for a job or direction in your career, or even if you're married and you feel alone because your friends are single, there's so much loneliness after college. So yeah, tell us about that and how you found that community.
It was really hard at first because I had like a packed out schedule in college. It's like Wednesday nights we do the gatherings. On Thursday nights we go to like Cheesecake Factory or whatever it is. And when I moved out, a lot of my friends were still in college, which made it really difficult. But I feel like it was like tomorrow I have nothing. The next day I have nothing. The next day I have nothing. And it's like also you're exhausted because now you're working full time. And that's hard. It's hard to get used to a new schedule, new changes. And now I have to find a new church because I'm super far away from my other one, whatever it may be. I feel like you just have to get used to being okay with not having plans and giving yourself time to try new things and really think like, what do I like to do? What do I want to do at this time? For me, that was I want to join the run club or I want to try this new young adults group out and I don't have anyone to go with me, but I'm just going to go and I'm just going to sit alone and it's going to be really uncomfortable, but I want to do it and just putting yourself out there, but also I feel like putting yourself out there sometimes, but then having days where you just stand and you just literally pray and you just read your Bible and you put on a fun show and you just kind of embrace the new season. And I don't know, I feel like that was like what helped me not putting pressure to go back to this busy schedule right now.
Just being able to slow down and really know who God created you to be will give you more direction too in your career and um, just your future. That's super good.
There's a verse, I have no idea where it is, but it's like, don't despise the day of small things.
Yeah.
And I think that, especially with the culture being so fast paced and so distracted and so busy, it can be easy to literally just look down on a small like light schedule or think that God can't use that because oh I'm not going out and doing stuff, like I'm just with God, I'm just by myself. But those are the times where God speaks identity over you and speaks his peace over you and purpose over you. And like it's almost like playing football, like you're not out there running plays back to back to back, like you take time to come together as a team and plan your next course of action. And it's the same, like you go and do in college, and then sometimes like after college I think it's okay to kind of circle back and like reframe like what does God want this season to look like. And I feel like that's just something you have to do over and over and over. It's like a muscle you have to start to train.
That's how summer feels like for me after college. It's like go go go, and then you're alone, kind of. I'm like still on campus and I have friends, but it's like it is season of small things, and it's a good time to regroup and see what does God want for me in this season, and also being bored is good. One of my professors was talking about that, and he was saying scrolling and just constantly stimulating your brain is not helpful, and God teaches us when we're resting. And if we're constantly stimulating our brains, we're not going to be able to have the time and like mindset to hear what God wants for us. So that's amazing advice. And then also, if you go to a young adult by yourself and then they ask you what you're up to, there's this constant like pressure to be doing something, and I think that also can bring in fear of like going places alone or meeting new people because you don't have something to say for yourself. Like, what have you been doing? Oh, it's a season of small things. Like, that should be okay. That should be normal. Because that happens in tons of seasons, not just college. That can be high school summers. That can be retirement. It's not just one season of life. And again, it is a muscle that you need to continue to grow.
Yeah, and I think just also to add to that, like knowing that God has a plan for you and He has good things to come, and having that hope that this season isn't your final season. This season isn't everything. And I really do feel like in this, like, if you really want to have strong faith, you just have to have hope for the future. That hope is going to be kind of your anchor for the future to come. And if you don't have that hope, then you don't plan as much and like you don't get excited because you think, oh, this is all God has for me, and you just like mope and you're sad. But if you're actually hopeful of the future, you start to build like dreams and visions that God has, and you start to find your purpose. And in Proverbs it says, for lack of vision the people perish, and that's what happens. Like, you can either use your season of small things to die essentially and just become just like fizzle out and just bury yourself in the ground, or you can use it to kind of amplify the next season and give yourself like a head start into the next season.
That's amazing. That's such good advice. Yeah. Instead of like being overcome in like sadness or like depression or whatever it may be, letting it be a time for God to equip you for the next season and just having vision for that next season. Maybe you'll be doing ministry and this season is a time for you to read and grow in the Lord to equip you for that season.
Yeah, I so agree. And I feel like it's also how you view rest. Because if you view rest as like you're in timeout, God is done with you for now, like he'll pick you up later, then you're just going to hate the season of rest. You're going to not rest. You won't rest and you won't replenish your resources and your identity. But if you see it as, no, God's still working in this season, it just looks different and it's not super visible. Like, this is a season to kind of plant seeds, not to like gather the harvest. And you really, I feel like, just have to learn to be okay with rest.
And then coming out of that, you worked at the chiropractor for 2 years, almost 2 years, and you have that rest, you have that time to regroup and grow in the Lord. You had a roommate. That's a super fun season. Margot roomed with her best friend before she got married, and before her best friend got married, actually a couple of days ago. Yeah, it was super fun. And then Margot like got involved in church ministry, kids ministry, playing guitar for kids ministry, and now that she's built that community, started going to a new church, started doing ministry there. Now she has a new job that is aligning with her business management degree and what Margot's so good at, like presenting and honestly I don't know what you're doing, but you're
all the management things.
so good at management and like just a business owner. Like, this is for you. This is perfect for you. But you've had that rest so you can come back to this. And now that you're in this season, you're going to a new apartment complex with a new friend. And it's just an amazing season that you can come back to now that you've rested. So tell us about this new opportunity.
Yeah, I feel like this is also really an uncomfortable season for me because I think hopefully this is encouraging. Like, I didn't see myself continuing into another season being single, like, honestly. And so, yeah, my best friend just got married. I got this new job. Now I'm moving to a new apartment complex. And while it's all great, it's a season of trust because it is something that's super uncomfortable for me because I genuinely didn't think I would ever be in a different season than all my friends. And I didn't think I would have to move into another season with another person being single. And I didn't think I'd have to navigate another job being single. And not that singleness is like a bad season, because it isn't, but it's just another opportunity to learn to trust God, like what his plans are are perfect for my life, and that I can get excited for this new job and this new move and this new church, and I don't need to have somebody with me right now. Like that's not what God has planned. And so I'm in the right season. It just doesn't feel like it. And so that's just something that I'm learning again, and just realizing I don't need to know all the footing for this next season, but I'm just going to continue to pray into it and be excited for the doors that opened.
Yes. This is like the walk with God, and that's what I love. Like the goal of this podcast is what is the biggest lesson you've learned on your walk with God, to be able to encourage other believers. But you walk through so many seasons of unknown, and then you've seen God work in all of the unknown. So now you're in another season that's still uncomfortable. You're single. You don't know the timeline God has for you. Like so many of us, whether it's like relationship based or career based or athletics based or friendships, like there's so many unknowns, and you're in another unknown season, but you've seen God work, and so you know you can trust God, and you've worked that muscle. You know how to rely on God in a season of small things, but also you're in big things. Like it's another waiting season in one area, but you have your career, so
Yeah.
there's never a comfortable time of life.
I feel like everyone's rich in something. Like some people can go like, "Well, I have a spouse, but I don't have the job I want." Or I have the spouse and the job but not the community or whatever it may be. And so I think it's reframing yourself to have gratitude, honestly, and just go, thank you, God, that I have a job that supports me, a place to live, an amazing community, an amazing church, and I don't have a husband, and that's okay. Like I don't need a husband. That isn't God didn't promise me like that he'll give me everything right away. And that doesn't take away from the gifts that he has given me in this season. And so I feel like it's just like reframing yourself to just be thankful for what you do have and just go like this season is not what I thought it would be, but this is a great season and I need to enjoy it. But also like pour your heart out to God for the things that you are hoping for and dreaming of, but don't make the dreams that you have take away from the gifts that God's giving you right now.
Yes, because God says He will give you the desires of your heart, but that doesn't mean now. We don't know His timeline. So that's amazing advice. Looking on the bright side, looking at the things that God has given you, because we all have so many things we can thank God for, but it's so easy to compare and be like, well, my friend's married, my friend's engaged, my friend's dating, and I'm single, or my friend has this amazing job and I am working fast food while I'm working on like a career. And there's so many ways you can compare, but yeah, looking at the things that God has given you, having joy on God's will and what He has planned for your future. That's the biggest thing. Another thing I wanted to talk about is social media. Social media is huge, especially for girls in high school and college. This is a big time of comparison, and that can destroy like your mindset. Like trying so hard to focus on what God has for your life and what God has done for you, but then you see a distraction, like somebody just got married, or just like that's just something in our lives right now. So that's why I keep bringing it up because it's so common and it's amazing, and we should be so happy for them. But it is like an area of comparison. But Margot actually deleted Instagram. So tell us about that and what you learned from that. And are you on Instagram now? What does that look like? And what advice would you give to somebody who's wanting to delete Instagram but wants to keep up with friends and all that?
Yeah, I feel like I go back and forth often where I'm like, I'm going to delete Instagram forever. I'm going to deactivate my whole account for my whole life. And then I get it again. And then I'm like, oh, this is so great. And then I get burnout over it again. So I feel like there has to be a balance. So I've tried to just limit my intake of Instagram content. But I think I'm just learning there's beauty in knowing other people's lives and being encouraged with other people's stories. And there's beauty in falling in love with the story that God's written for you. So I feel like there has to be a little bit of both. So what I've kind of been trying to put to practice in my own life is looking on Instagram, like seeing people and their lives and being inspired, but then never having that overtake my time personally with God, because I feel like it's really helpful to have both each day. And so what that looks like is every day I wake up at 6 o'clock and I have 30 minutes to spend with God and just journaling, reading, praying, just asking Him to reveal what He has for me. And then also at the end of the day, sometimes I'll look on Instagram and I'll be like, whoa, that's so cool that God's doing this in their life. I kind of want to do that. It motivates me to push myself a little bit harder. And there are other people who are single too who are posting on Instagram. And it can be really encouraging where I'm like, oh, I'm not alone. I actually can relate to exactly what they're saying. And then going back to prayer, like, God, what do you want for me in this next season? And just a little bit of both, because I feel like it's really cool because you can kind of put into practice what you see in their lives and how God's leading them. And then you can go, okay, of all the stuff I just saw, what is it that God may be speaking to me and maybe wanting me to kind of like also have reflecting in my life?
That's super good advice. Because then you can be a good friend, you know what's going on in their lives, but you're not letting it overtake your time with God.
Right.
It's so hard to get that balance.
Yeah, I feel like it's also like if you genuinely are excited for what God's doing in your life, you aren't as tempted to compare because instead of being like, oh, but I don't have that, it's like, well, that's really cool that they're doing that. And it's more inspiration instead of like, but I don't have that. You're like, no, but I have this. I know and I'm confident in that. But also, they have that, and that's really cool. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah.
And just having that joy knowing that everyone has a different life. One piece of advice from somebody's season, like, oh, maybe they got this certain degree and then went through these internships to get this job. It's not like that's like the pathway for everyone, and just knowing that God has a different plan for everyone, just being encouraging for that.
Like if you're not full in Christ, like you don't have your identity, then you're going to be shifting with all the waves, and all the things you see are just going to shift your perspective and get you off track, and you're going to be just unable to focus on what God has for you. But then if you are filled up with God and filled with identity and just a purpose, then when you look at other things, it's so much easier to remain constant in that hope and excited for the future. Because if you're not on social media, you have friends who are in other seasons. So you're going to have comparison no matter where you're going. And so if you really want to be able to celebrate with your friends, be there for them, be vulnerable about your own struggles, you have to first be rooted in Christ. And I feel like that's just everything in every area of life. You have to be filled with God, and then you're coming to other situations rooted deeply.
And I think you've done such a good job rooting your identity in God after running and then after getting an amazing job right after college and then realizing that that was exhausting and then trusting God. That I think you've done an amazing job with that, and I think that's something that a lot of listeners, assuming you guys are high school and college age girls, like that's something we go through all the time. Where do I put my identity? Do I have the right grades? Did I make the right, like, did I make nursing school? Will I make nursing school? There's so many unknowns. I think that's something that all of us college and high school age girls go through is having your identity in God. So if you get bad grades in the test, if you don't get into the college you wanted to get into, or if you didn't get into nursing school, or you didn't get the internship, that won't mess up your relationship with God. If you are solid, rooted in God, that's your identity, and nothing will move you. That's like the best advice. Just being rooted with your identity in God, and that's a muscle, like you were saying. That's something we have to constantly work at to come at that decision to be rooted in God even after a challenge.
For
But
sure.
then going back to the question of the podcast, which you kind of answered, but the question is, what is the biggest lesson you've learned on your walk with God? So, what has been the biggest lesson through? I know we just talked about mostly your adult life, but yeah, what is the biggest lesson you've learned as a believer?
I feel like honestly, this is something I've kind of learned more recently, but I'm so focused sometimes on like, what's the right decision? What's the wrong decision? Am I making a mistake? Am I on the wrong path now? What's going on? And just realizing you can just rest as a Christian knowing like God is always going to be bringing you back to the right path, and you can never run away from the path that God has for you. And you don't need to live in fear that each decision you make is going to harm your relationship with God, or it's going to take you off course, or you're going to like ruin your life. God has a plan, and that plan is never going to change. And so we don't have to live in fear, but we need to make sure we're pressing in to God. And I think that's just the biggest lesson, honestly.
That's amazing. I think today at church, actually, my pastor was talking about how, like, God, when He died on the cross, He took the wrath that would have been given to all of us. And if you're saved, like, yes, you have consequences for your actions, just like anything else. Like in life, if you make the wrong turn, like you're gonna have to drive a couple extra minutes. Like that's just how life works. But God disciplines, which is another like, great thing that God does. But that's not God's wrath. Like God doesn't give Christians wrath because Jesus took that all on the cross. And so any decision that you make that you think will affect you, that is maybe like to punish you, like that's actually not true. That's actually not biblical. Like God has a plan for you, and if you are saved, you're truly His. He is not going to punish you with His wrath. Like He may discipline you. He may have some consequences from your actions, but God is not out to get you and like punish you. And that's encouraging. Like God is.
That's really good. This is like, I think this kind of goes along with this topic, but I remember a like phrase I never will forget is we don't control God with our obedience. Like we're not just trying to win his approval and make him do everything we need him to do, or like he's going to bring out his wrath. Like we're not, that's not, there's no fear in love. And perfect love casts out all fear. And that's something we can rest in. Like we don't need to be fearful of God's wrath. I like that you said that.
I wish we could talk longer, and there's so much that we can talk about. You have to be on here. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I hope this was encouraging to you guys. And any last words?
I'm like, I would just say, like, be excited for what God has for you on this journey, and always remember you're his child and he wants to give you good gifts, and you can receive them with joy. And living this life as a Christian is challenging at times, but it's also very joyful, and we can appreciate that.
Such good advice. You heard it here from Margot Desmond. Comment below if you want Margot on the podcast again.
Please.
Or some topics that you want her to talk about, because Margot is full of wisdom. And yes, thank you so much for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. And I hope you guys have a great week.